This is an urgent and critical message for Governor Shapiro or anybody on his action team. Governor Shapiro, my name is Tammy Morris, and I'm the executive director at Faith Friendship Ministries, a 74-bed state licensed personal care home in Mountville, Pennsylvania, Lancaster County. The reason for this video is to share an urgent and critical matter with you. Please let me assure you that I have gone through all of the chains of government. I have taken this from the county level all the way up to you, Governor. And please hear me when I say I would not have brought this to your attention if it were not necessary. And I had received the support that we need at any juncture along the way in our communications. This video is an attempt to share the issues with you, and it's also a plea for your help. Faith Friendship was founded in 2002 in response to needs in the community that our founders, Steve and Patty Deach, were sensitive to. They saw that people that suffered with complicated and persistent mental illness often would destabilize when they lived on their own, and were in danger of being victims of violent crimes or homelessness or unnecessary hospitalizations. They also realized that some of these residents, with the right supports in place, activities of daily living, medicine administration, meals, laundry, housekeeping, case management, support with medical and transportation needs, that these citizens of Pennsylvania could otherwise thrive. I agree with them. Faith Friendship is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And it's good that we are, because our residents don't have enough money to pay for what it actually costs to care for them. We have about a 50% deficit after receiving resident rents. Through charitable donations that bridges the gap, the deficit in funding, Faith Friendship has been able to successfully operate for 22 years. It hasn't always been easy, and oftentimes we wondered where the money would come from that we needed to care for our residents, but God was always faithful. Governor, in your most recent budget address yesterday, you made some pretty powerful comments, and I appreciate them. I appreciate your balanced and bold approach to meeting the needs of the citizens of Pennsylvania while preserving and taking action to preserve Pennsylvania for the future, economically and also for our citizens. You know, one of the things that you said was that it's time to make sure that we're caring for the most vulnerable now and in the future. And I'm paraphrasing you, that there's finally a master plan for aging, because by 2030, 1 in 3 citizens will be senior citizens. You also said, which was so compelling and moved me, and you'll know why soon, that we need to do right by the victims of sexual abuse, finally do right by them. And that is the thrust of my message, and that it's time that we start giving a damn by actually taking action and not just lip service. Governor, you and I couldn't be more aligned on these very statements that you made. In August of 2022, a resident of Faith Friendship Ministries made allegations of abuse against a then beloved, trusted, and respected member of our care team. This employee had been with us for a decade and a half and was looked up to by many and considered a mentor and coach. He was a leader in the community, and he was also heavily involved and active in his church's disability ministry. He also served as a hospice volunteer at one point and at our local Blessings of Hope. And he was someone that nobody thought would be capable of doing such horrendous things. Yet, after a couple months of an investigation by the agencies involved, they determined that it was likely that this occurred and that these allegations were credible. So the district attorney's office decided to press charges Over the course of those 2 months while we were waiting for the district attorney and other agencies to make a decision about what they were going to do, um, I was in prayer as a woman of faith and speaking to my spiritual and business mentors and trying to find a way to navigate through this well. And I kept kind of hearing the phrase, or the phrase kept coming to mind: remember the more, remember the more, remember the more. And at the time, looking back, it seems like common sense. But at the time, with everything going on, I just wasn't making the connection. And so, of course, as a woman of faith, I asked God to help me understand what this meant. And in early November of 2022, I had made an announcement at mealtime to our residents and letting them know that Jim Zook would not be returning to Faith Friendship because he had some legal issues he had to take care of. Someone said he did something bad, and so he had to face that. And because of that, he wasn't able to come back to work for us. Now, I didn't give any details. I didn't even say it was sexual in nature. I didn't even say it was a member of our own household that had made the allegations. I wanted to not lead, seed, or plant, but I also wanted to protect their stability. And as residents who suffer from sometimes severe, complicated, and persistent mental illness, things like this can destabilize them very, very quickly. Almost immediately following that announcement, a resident whom we call family member went to speak to his care manager because I had said, if any of you have any questions that you don't feel comfortable sharing in a public setting, please talk to me or your care managers. And this resident immediately went to his care manager and shared a story of abuse. That care manager called me into the office. I also heard the story of abuse. And Governor, what I can tell you is that this precious, precious man, um, as he shared this story with us, he couched it by saying, "This isn't the first time this has happened to me, so I just kind of got used to it after a while." And he's perverted and disgusting, but you know, I thought he could take my housing away from me, and he was my friend. And do you hear the confusion in that? Do you hear the lies that people believe when they're victims of abuse and they're left alone to figure it out? Not to mention complicate that with mental illness. It broke our hearts. Over the holiday season in November and December and early January, Faith Friendship sat down with every resident and asked these questions. A lot of the interviews were conducted by me personally, but all of them were witnessed and documented by a member of our management team. As a result of these conversations, 11 more men came forward with stories of abuse. So now we have 14 men alleging that this man sexually abused them. All of this resulted in Jim Zook being charged with 662 counts of institutional sexual assault and improper sexual conduct. Can't remember the name of the misdemeanor. I'm sorry. Um, and on September 25th of 2023, he pleaded guilty to all of those counts. As of the date of this video, which is February 7th, 2024, Jim Zook has not been sentenced, but is scheduled to be on February 15th. The impact and the damage done to his victims, to the organization that is Faith Friendship, to the other residents who live here who may not have been directly abused by him but are impacted by the choices that he made. The 30 plus full-time employees, our donors, our community, and the Faith Friendship residents that have yet to come for us to serve, the damage seems almost incalculable. We have experienced financial loss due to our inability to apply and receive some grants because we have open legal issues, our inability to fund this crisis any longer because we are unable to leverage our assets or pull equity out of our assets to fund this crisis. There is the loss of some of the donors who initially thought that there was no way that he could do this. And they were significant donors. Um, Not to mention the costs of trying to keep a home built in the 1890s in good working order, and the rising costs of doing business to serve our residents on a daily basis, the colossal increase in insurance premiums now that this has happened. Um, the insurance companies who held our abuse and molestation coverage that we paid thousands of dollars every year for that coverage have run for the hills, and our inability to just generally raise more money right now, despite the faithfulness of our donors who've gone above and beyond to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 16 months. We are in real trouble, Governor. And all of this is because of the impact of one person's decisions to betray the trust, to harm the most vulnerable, and to exploit them, all under the guise, all under cover of a Christian organization trying to protect and serve the very people that he targeted. In late summer of last year, Faith Friendship Ministries applied for the ERC refund through the IRS. And it's been calculated that one, we are eligible, but two, the refund is somewhere around $500,000. Now, you may know that the IRS put a moratorium on processing all of these refunds because they detected fraud. And so they're trying to find a way to deal with that, to have repayment of fraudulent refunds that were made, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The bottom line is Faith Friendship has $500,000 of legitimate refund money owed to us sitting in their coffers. That would help in funding this crisis, but we don't have access to that either. Governor, I have sought help from